In this module, so we have 6 chapters that are going to be covered in the 2 exams. So sheep farming in Ireland, health and safety in agriculture, we're looking specifically at sheep, and sheep production systems make up the first exam. So in that first exam, there's 15 short questions and 2 long questions. Exam 2 consists of sheep diseases, disorders, and parasites. I was going to do that this weekend, but I feel like that might be a little bit better. I suppose live, just so it can be a little bit more interactive. People generally have more questions around that. Chapter after that, we'll be looking at sheep housing and then drivers of profit within the sheep industry. Your skills then will be based on the sheep practical skills that you see in the back of the book. Some of them you've been assessed for already. So the 2 exams, 25% each, both exams consisting of 15 short questions and 2 long questions. And then you must carry out 20 sheep practical skills worth 2.5% each. You should have results for the sheep skills that you've done already up on Quirkus. If you're having any trouble viewing those, will you also just send that into the DE course email. Jumping straight into the theory. So agriculture as a whole in Ireland was worth 8.01 billion euros in 2019 to the Irish economy, and sheep accounted for 280 million euros of that, or approximately 3.6%. Sheep numbers have increased to 3.9 million in 2019 from 3.1 million in the 2009 sheep census, and the average flock holds about 106 ewes. So that used to be 108 ewes back in 2016. So the average flock number has gone down. Sheep breeds consist of about 28% mountain breeds, 18% mountain cross, 22% lowland breeds, and 32% lowland cross. You can see here about 60,000 tonnes produced in Ireland annually, 52% of which are exported. Our largest exporters are going to be the UK and France. They account for about 60% of total exports. So Ireland is 330% self-sufficient for sheep meat. So we're producing almost 3.5 times as much as we actually consume here in the country. Now, when we say sheep meat, it's lamb is going to be the main product that we're exporting. We wouldn't be exporting mutton quite as much. We're the 6th largest producers in the EU, producers in the EU, and we are the largest exporter within the EU as well. And you can just see there what I was saying already. The UK and France account for about 60% of our exports, and 70% of our total produce is exported. There's lots of strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats within the sheep industry. I've taken these directly out of one of the Teagasc publications. We go through some of the most important ones. I won't be reading all of them. But some of our main strengths is a grass-based production system. We live in a really ideal temperate climate for growing large volumes of grass. We can achieve grass growth of up to 12 tonnes, more even in a medium stocked dry stock farm. We generally don't even need that much grass inside in our sheep producing enterprises. We have very good export performance because we do have good quality assurance. People in other parts of the world do like to see Irish lamb on the menu because they know it's coming from a high quality setting. High net value added products, so we can basically add a lot of our value to our products before we send them out. And we do have some very good, credible and sustainable quality assurance schemes. Fergal would have mentioned the Sustainable Beef and Lamb Assurance Scheme T in the beef module, but small things like that, Board BA approval, the Irish flag, does give consumers a lot of confidence in the food that they are receiving. Weaknesses are the seasonality of supply. Now, mainly our lamb is going to be ready during the summer period, late summer as well. We can get lamb ready for the Easter market through sponging of ewes. We'll see that in chapter 3. But we do have quite a limited availability of lamb throughout the year. The viability of sheep farming is heavily dependent on direct supports to the producer. So a lot of sheep farmers wouldn't be able to stay in business if they didn't have the likes of your BIS payments, your basic income supplementary support. payments coming out annually, which was capped. But essentially, a lot of farms, especially sheep farms, wouldn't be economically viable if those supports weren't in place. We do have a higher age profile of sheep farmers. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. All farmers are capable, but sometimes when you have older farmers, they may not be as willing to accept changes in the enterprise that might help to increase their profitability or their performance. I'm not saying that all older farmers are like that, but it is just something when you have a higher age profile. Sometimes farmers can be a little bit more resistant to change, especially if something that they've been doing has worked for however long. Opportunities, so securing access to new markets in Asia, Africa, and North America, especially in Asia, there has been a Chinese market which has opened up and started taking a lot of New Zealand lamb. This might seem like, I suppose, a threat to us, but it's great because if New Zealand exports are going towards China, it means that there's going to be more market there within Europe and within other Asian markets for Irish lamb to be sent to. We do also have a growing ethnic population inside in Ireland. It can be very good for sheep production because we now have another product we can produce, mutton. So sheep meat that is over 1 year old. A lot of ethnic populations would find that a more desirable cut of meat than the likes of our lamb, meaning that our older cull ewes, even our 2-3 year old animals, can go towards mutton production as well. It means that you can hold on to an animal as well if you are in a low production area. So we'll say if you have, I suppose, more commonage or mountainy ground, if you're not able to produce viable lambs for lamb production or lamb meat, you can run them on for an extra year. You have a little bit more time and you can end up producing mutton. The price isn't going to be as good as lamb, but if it's a cheaper product to produce over the course of 2 years than pumping animals filled with concentrates over the course of 1 year, it can work out economically more viable for lower production farms or farms where you're limited by, I suppose, the land that you have. Some threats are going to be food safety incidents. So if it's a case that you have, even look there in the beef industry, TB outbreak, the demand for beef goes down. Foot and mouth exports were stopped going into Asia. So we did lose out on a big market there. We weren't able to export our meat products out of the country, or a lot of them out of the country. Disease outbreaks, if Ireland becomes known for having a lot of diseases prevalent among stock, I suppose the marketability of our product goes down. Difficult to maintain consumption levels as well. So we'll see there, we'll talk about a little bit more. People are turning off of red meat. It's a bit of a trend that's going through the market. There is some things specifically that will affect the sale of sheep meat, but we'll see that as we go through. Our sale and export markets. So Irish markets hold premium carcass qualities for the French market. What they're generally looking for is a carcass, so that's dead weight, of 16 to 22 kilos. That's going to be coming from your 40 to 44 kilo lamb. Mediterranean countries take smaller or lighter lamb carcasses. They're looking for 8 to 12.5 kilos. And a live sheep market from Ireland revolves largely around Muslim festivals. That's going to be the likes of Ramadan, which falls around Easter. Long-tailed ram lambs, 44 to 55 kilos. So a confirmation of R or U, so very fat, well-fleshed animals are going to be going towards these markets. These animals must be considered whole, so not castrated, tails not docked. There's a small little table underneath just showing you the different market requirements for different countries. You see France will take the heaviest of our lamb carcasses. They want good conformation. They don't want a lot of fat that needs to be cut off. So large, older animals. Ireland and the UK, very similar. So 18 to 21 kilos roughly. Just good conformation. Spain, Portugal, the likes of Italy as well. 8 to 12.5 kilos, so a much lighter animal, and need very light fat cover. Right there, skipped one. So for the markets, you can see here, light lambs, Spain, Portugal, and Italy. French market, they want a lean carcass, but quite a bulky animal. Home trade, butcher trade, so lamb carcasses, 19 even to 22 kilos. So live weight there, 44 to 48 kilos. Generally, it's a little bit less, but if you have poor breeding inside in a flock, then it's going to reduce the actual kill-out value of our lambs, which we'll talk about during the skills. And home trade can get oversupplied very easily, as farmers will hold on to lambs for too long, waiting for prices to increase, especially there towards the end of the summer. You'll have farmers who'd rather put an extra week of meal into the animals, waiting for the price to go up, than let them go. The distribution of sheep throughout the country. So just now, this is an older map. You can see it's from 2016. I didn't see a more up-to-date one at the moment, but it just gives you an idea of where a lot of our sheep in the country are sitting. You can see Donegal, Galway, and Mayo have 3 of the highest populations, but a lot of these animals are going to be coming from, I suppose, mountain or commonage area. The likes of Kerry as well, a lot of commonage area. A lot of your lighter distribution colours there are going to be from more lowland, maybe not Wicklow, but a lot of our other countries, they're going to be made up more of lowland flocks. So the likes of your Charlies, Texels, the sheep that we're used to seeing on the front of any advertising, those are generally going to be coming from lowland areas where you have a little bit higher intensity and higher profit margins. The average flock size, so 60% or 67% of flocks have less than 100 ewes. You can see there that they're made up of between the 1 and 50, 50 to 100. And as we go up in numbers, you can see that the amount of or the percentage of flocks that have high amounts of ewes goes down. A lot of our flocks that have large numbers of ewes are actually going to be in our commonage areas. Now you will have some commercial farmers that will have high numbers of ewes, but you do have quite large flocks inside in your commonage areas because you have such large areas of ground. But just because they're larger flocks doesn't mean you're going to have more output from those flocks. Generally, it's going to be quite the opposite for our mountain flocks. The numbers of flocks that were in the country, so you can see in 1997 we had about 40,000 flocks. 2001 it decreased to 38,000 flocks. 2011 32,000 flocks. So we are having a general decrease in flocks over time, but the population of our sheep isn't going down, it's increasing. What this is telling us is that a lot of the smaller farmers, maybe older farmers that had a small number of ewes, are the ones that are, I suppose, shutting down or going out of business. But larger flocks and existing flocks are expanding. The products that we get from sheep here in Ireland, so it's mainly going to be meat products. So mostly lamb is eaten. The lamb carcass consists of many different cuts. We have our neck, gigot, shoulder, cutlets, breast, loin, fillet, leg, and shank. Some of our byproducts are going to be the skin. So used for the likes of rugs and leather. The pluck, which is going to be our heart, lungs, and liver. And our tripe, or small intestine and stomach. A lot of this will go into your animal food products. So basically dog and cat food. You have the head, you have the legs and skull. So lots of cartilage and everything can be taken from the legs and skull, used to make the likes of gelatin. You have the skin then, which is the largest byproduct that we produce. It's 2/3 of the value of the byproducts. So as you can see there, leather and sheepskins. So the pluck there, heart and liver, can be eaten or exported. Lungs for pet food. Small intestine, sausage casings, good quality tripe is eaten. Pet food. Wool as well can be a very valuable byproduct, but we have very limited use for it here in Ireland. So wool in Ireland has gone down, or the value in wool in Ireland has gone down significantly. Lots of people are opting to bury wool inside in the farm if they don't have a large amount of it, use it for compost. It is extremely high in nitrogen. It is an option that you can have, but you need to try and break it down and compost it appropriately so that you can release those humic acids and make it into, I suppose, a good enough source of nutrition. It's very important in Australia, but they do have sheep bred for wool production in Australia and the likes of New Zealand. So sheep will grow wool for protection against the cold, protection against the elements. It doesn't just work to keep the cold off of the animal, but it helps to almost waterproof them to a certain extent. Yes, wool will absorb water, but it will still provide a bit of protection between the insulating them even when they are wet. Different breeds will have different wool, and fleeces should be kept clean as much as possible, not so much for the resale value, but just more for the overall health of the animal. Milk is something that we don't focus on very much here in Ireland from sheep. So some breeds are commercially milked, to the likes of the Locown breed, used by, I think they're Velvet Cloud, based in Mayo. Sheep milk is used for hard cheeses, soft cheeses, and yogurts. During peak lactation, a ewe is going to produce about 3 to 4 litres a day. The Locown breed, so it's a French breed, dairy sheep breed. It's popular, milked twice a day for about 6 months and produces about 160 litres in total. France is leading the way in sheep dairy, and likes of Roquefort cheese, some feta cheeses, the Velvet Cloud yogurts, sheep milk are all products that you can get here in Ireland. I know in Galway you can get most of them inside, and it's Sheridan's. Sheridan's in Shop Street. So consumption of sheep is highly under pressure. A lot of dangers have been associated with red meats over the last few years. So the likes of red meat being listed higher as a carcinogen, it being considered fatty, has all damaged, I suppose, red meat popularity. Use the likes of Meatless Mondays, where people are trying to reduce or cut down the amount of red meat that they take in during the week. These are all going to threaten the actual consumption of sheep meat. So lamb being regarded as fatty and wasteful as well. Convenience food, so your microwavable meals, you're generally not going to have a lamb microwavable meal or a sheep meat microwavable meal, because it doesn't, I suppose, reheat as well as your turkey and ham, your beef dinner, your chicken dinner. White meats as well have gained population or popularity massively over the last number of years, particularly the last 30 years. 30 years ago in Ireland, not as much chicken would have been eaten, especially in the countryside. Chickens were kept for egg production, whereas now chicken is one of the most commonly eaten meats in the country. Or sorry, most widely eaten meats in the country. Sheep meat, so when we say sheep meat, we mean an animal that is over 1 year of age when slaughtered. So meat from an animal over 1 year of age is going to be called mutton. It is much higher in fat content, meaning that there is more wastage inside in the product. Less lean meat, mostly exported, and it goes into the likes of sausages and kebabs. So any lamb kebabs are generally made using mutton. Now, as I say, there is more of a market for this mutton in Ireland as you have ethnic populations growing. It's just becoming more popular. So there may be more of a home market available within the next few years, but at the moment, the vast majority of it is being exported. Now, I won't spend much time on the Sustainable Beef and Lamb Assurance Scheme. I've taken out a lot of the material because it's going to just be overlapping with what Fergal covered in the beef. The material is here, so you can have a look at it. There may be some short questions based on this. But if you have any specific questions about the Sustainable Beef and Lamb Assurance Scheme, will you just pop us an email? Both myself and Fergal will be able to have a look over it. And if it depends if it's on sheep or beef, but we'll be able to give you back a good answer if there's anything that's not answered between the beef and sheep on it. The second chapter here is just going to be on health and safety in agriculture. A lot of it is going to be around reducing the actual workload involved in sheep production, and how we can reduce potential injuries, specifically looking at sheep. There will be some stuff you'll see in the book based on sheep diseases and why health and safety and disease are interlinked. I'd rather cover those inside in chapter 4, just so we can get a fully rounded, I suppose, discussion going about sheep diseases, disorders and parasites. So when we're actually handling sheep, we need to consider handling the sheep safely, that we're not going to be injuring them and putting them in a position where they might want to kick out or twist and potentially end up hurting ourselves and themselves. We want to have a look at the type of handling equipment that is ideally suited for sheep. You'll all be familiar with the handling unit that we have in the college. Bit run down, bit old, not ideal, doesn't run very smoothly. So having a look at an ideal setup, and then the transport of sheep, just to try and make sure that we're transporting them in a safe manner, and that when we go to load and unload them, we're not going to be putting ourselves at unnecessary risk either. So when there is a farm safety code, it will go into a lot more detail on this within the book. But we want to develop a safe attitude of safety, so keep personal safety and the safety of others and livestock in mind at all times. We want to constantly be vigilant of hazards around the farm. I have no problem if we're on a practical, and if you see something that you think is going to be a hazard and you point it out to me, I have no problem with that. We can't be, I suppose, shy about pointing out if something is unsafe to other people. Just because I'm down the yard and I'm used to being down there, I'm used to handling the sheep that are down there. If you think that something I'm doing is unsafe and you want to address that with me, I'll never take any offense to anything like that. Okay, so don't be afraid to point things out to other people at any time. It's a much better culture because it will prevent a lot more accidents around the farm. Learn from your experiences. So if you've done something in the past and become injured or almost become injured, then it's a good idea to, I suppose, redress how you actually approach that task again. Clothing, so wear good boots and avoid loose clothing. Loose clothing around machinery can become caught. You'll see that in farm safety, farm insurance, but loose clothing around animals can actually spook and upset them quite a bit. Fair enough, a dairy farm, animals may not be as easily scared, but loose clothing around dry stock who aren't used to being handled quite as much, especially once they get put into a crush or a pen, where they're already going to be a little bit heightened, a little bit more anxious. Loose clothing blowing in the wind can just catch them out the corner of their eye while you're approaching them, cause them to jump or spook. So clothing that's zipped up, not blowing around. If there's a hood on the back of a jacket that's blowing madly, try and tuck it in, or try and, if it's a removable hood, take it off. Keep hand tools as well in good working order. And when handling materials, make sure you're using proper PPE. So if you're handling chemicals, pop on your gloves. That includes the likes of your sheep dips, your mineral doses, anything like that. Because remember, from safe use pesticide products, a lot of those chemicals can actually be absorbed onto or absorbed through the skin, and it's not something that we want to have in our hand, because while we're handling sheep, it's very easy for us to get a scrape and any of those vaccines or chemicals that we're using on the animals to come into contact with our own bloodstream. The farm safety code, so when walking, make sure that you're keeping your area clear at all times. Falls, so don't be using a ladder that is half falling apart. It's probably fairly much, or it's probably common sense, but people do it. Don't be leaning over the side of your ladders when you're using them. Keep machinery in good working order. Don't go trying to service machinery when you need it. Try and service machinery in its downtime if you're on a farm where machinery does have downtime. If you don't need the tractor 12 months of the year, then when it's not being used as much, maybe the sheep are housed for the winter, you don't need the tractor as much, that's when you should be carrying out any repairs. If something needs to be repaired and you say, I don't need to worry about that until the sheep go out again, then you're just pushing it down the line and you could have safety issues pop up from it. Tidiness around the yard, so don't have any uncovered pits or tanks. Just because you know a hazard is there doesn't mean everyone will. First aid, so just have a first aid kit nearby and handy. Have bucket of sand and fire extinguishers there to help control small fires. Make sure you know where all of your electricity wiring is, any exposed wires. just get them looked after, get them covered again. And chemicals, your chemical store, there's no need to go into all the details of that again when it's been covered in safe use of pesticides. One disease I am going to mention here briefly, but as I say, I'm going to run through these because I want to talk about them a lot more when we're looking at chapter 4, because we'll be looking at it from the sheep point of view. Toxoplasmosis is caused mainly by having farm cats that are able to access sheep bedding and sheep feed. If they defecate or urinate on feed, it can pass on this toxoplasmosis and allow it to enter your sheep's or into the sheep system, and it can cause the early termination of pregnancies. But the problem is it's a zoonotic disease, meaning that it can be transferred between sheep and humans. It can affect human pregnancies. It can cause women to lose pregnancies quite early on, and it can cause issues in subsequent pregnancies as well. It's the reason why I try to remind you that if anyone has anyone pregnant at home, or if anyone is pregnant, whoever is doing the sheep skills, you just need to let us know that we don't let you handle the sheep. We haven't had a case of toxoplasmosis on the farm, but it's better to be safe than sorry. From a human point of view, the most at-risk times is going to be around breeding and lambing. So when the sheep are going to be, I suppose, excreting high levels of bodily fluids, that's when our people are going to be most at risk. You will not see any symptoms in sheep. Another disease to be careful of, exotic abortion. It's bacterial infection caused by Chlamydophila abortus, another zoonotic disease, and it's also a notifiable disease, meaning that you must alert your local vet, your local DVO, so that they can basically restrict access from your herd to from your flock to other flocks and prevent this disease from spreading. Highly contagious, moves very, very fast. But again, we'll talk about it an awful lot more when we get into the diseases, disorders, and parasites portion. Very important thing for everyone to be aware of. Don't ever be shy to let us know if there's someone at home, someone that you're going to be in contact with in days following your on-site days, or yourself. If there's anyone pregnant and you don't want to take the risk, all you need to let us know. We may ask you to come up and stand beside the sheep. There's no issue with that if you're comfortable with it, as long as you're not handling the sheep. Once you leave the area, then just wash your hands well. Everything will be okay. Anyone who's going home to a house where someone is pregnant, if you've been wearing clothes at the sheep practical, or if you've handled the sheep, what you need to do is just pop those clothes directly into a hot wash. So 60 degrees, I generally throw them into 90 degrees, but 60 degrees is perfect. And try and keep whatever boots you're wearing outside the house, keep them maybe in the car, maybe make them your Montbellier boots if you don't have sheep at home. So just some things to consider. Those are chapters 1 and 2. If you have any questions about those, definitely email onto the TE course email. Or if there's anything you'd rather ask, I suppose, in person, you can ask that at the end of the next lecture, okay? But if there is anything pressing, do send it on to us, please, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.